One of the world's poorest states pay for an incredibly expensive war. Part of the answer lies in the fact that the country which once spanned the Silk Road still possesses unique resources. Among them are gems and precious stones which dealers from around the world will pay extraordinary prices for. One such is the rare precious stone Lapis Lazuli, the purest source of which lies in a unique mine called Sarisang, controlled by the opposition forces fighting the ultra-fundamentalist Taliban movement. The BBC's World Affairs editor, John Simpson, took the Lapis trail from Afghanistan to Pakistan, starting in the Afghan province of Badakhshan on the edge of the Hindu Kush. From the regional capital, Faizabad, he set out to investigate how a trade going back thousands of years now funds the war and its commanders.
From one of the wildest and most remote countries on Earth, some of the most beautiful precious stones, emeralds, rubies, lapis lazuli. Lapis in particular. The ancient Egyptians used Afghan lapis for Tutankhamun's death mask. Medieval artists made ultramarine blue their most precious colour from it.
Nowhere else in the world is lapis found of that intensity. There's evidence from jewellery found throughout the Middle East that it goes back to that time, 6,000 years. And it's the same hole in the mountain, which is astonishing.
Afghanistan, you know that this Afghanistan is the only place from where we can get this lapis lazuli. That's why this lapis is well known in all of the world. And all the people of the world, they have demand for this lapis from Afghanistan.
But it doesn't come safely or easily. The lapis lazuli mine is in the middle of a war zone. The men who operate here can be wild and unstable. Along the front line, each new day opens with artillery exchanges. In reply, the enemy start launching rockets at our position, though the range is too great and they fall short. Any Afghan story nowadays begins here with the war. It sucks in everything Afghanistan possesses: manpower, money, natural resources. It's not in anyone's interest to stop it.
This is the front line in a war which seems to have taken on a life of its own. The front itself fluctuates tremendously, but behind it there's always the same old hinterland of complex interests which manages to keep the war going. Sometimes it's trade, often it's the national interests of the countries round about. Sometimes it's something more specifically Afghan. It's always been this way.
We'd heard that the trade in lapis lazuli helps to fund the war. The lapis is mined in territory controlled by Ahmed Shah Massoud, the opposition warlord. For him, Afghanistan's natural riches are part of the reason for its catastrophe.
In Persian there's a saying that the feathers of the peacock are its enemy. People kill the peacock because of its beautiful feathers. In the same way, our problem is our geographical location and resources. Because of this, throughout history, Afghanistan's been at war. For traders, then and now, it's a crucial crossroads.
The lapis route, the arms route, the drugs route cross each other constantly. To find the links, we took a UN plane to Badakhshan, the remotest province of Afghanistan, in the northern Hindu Kush range. The name means Hindu killer. Indians captured by Afghan raiding parties died like flies in these mountains. Our first port of call was Faizabad, dusty and primitive, but with a remarkable bazaar where just about everything was for sale. We wanted a way of protecting ourselves from the various armed groups operating in Badakhshan. We decided to get a local tailor to run up a BBC flag for us. It wasn't as ludicrous as it might sound. Most Afghans rely on the BBC's radio broadcast to their country, and the name is much respected. The scenery we passed through had a wild grandeur to it. Badakhshan is the most inaccessible part of this whole inaccessible country, and nothing much has changed here for centuries. Our flag gave us protection in the day, but at night time we were robbed more than once. We approached the town of Barak, the power base of Najmuddin Khan, the warlord who runs the area. There was real tension here. At a roadblock, men loyal to Najmuddin checked us out. Rival groups have been trying to muscle in here, eager to take over the wealth he gets from the Lapis Lazuli trade. The town was full of armed men, and more had come in from other parts of Afghanistan. Everyone seemed to be expecting trouble. In the mountains outside Barak, there have been frequent skirmishes. The hospital, which the British medical relief charity Merlin runs in Barak, has been dealing with the casualties from the fighting. This particular man had been paralysed after being shot in the neck.
There is a lot of trouble within the province. It's not just at a national level, and he is one of many victims which comes in from some local district commanders who have their differences of opinion, shooting generally, but also they have the mine problem in this province.
The biggest house in town was built by Najmuddin Khan, the local warlord, presumably from the spoils of the Lapis trade. It's a reminder to everyone here of the reason for the fighting round about. Najmuddin's no longer in town. He's off at the front line, and he's moved his family out as well.
Salam alaikum.
But Najmuddin still runs things from a distance. If we wanted to travel to the Lapis mine, we had to go and see his deputy in the town, Commander Sadar.
That's what the Commander Najmuddin gave a letter to.
We'd obviously come to the right place. Even Sadar's prayer beads were made of lapis. They summoned up Najmuddin Khan on the radio in order to get his agreement. Through the ether, the distant voice made no objection. We needed a piece of paper to take with us to the Lapis mine. Laboriously, Commander Sadar wrote it out. It didn't look particularly official, but it explained that we had full permission to visit the mine. So we left Barak and headed for Sarisang, where the mine was. The 40-mile journey took us more than 15 hours on these roads. The Russian jeeps we'd hired were pretty basic, but they were possibly the only vehicles which could have made it.
What about this one?
As the light was beginning to go, we came to a checkpoint. Our piece of paper from Commander Sadar worked surprisingly well. They decided to send a guard with us. There were robbers on the road. We had to press on despite the dark. For most of the way, the track was too narrow for us to be able to stop for the night. It was appallingly uncomfortable. And to our right was a precipice which went down 50 or 100 feet to the river at the bottom of the valley. After a brief, uneasy night by the roadside, we finished the last lap of the drive to Sarisang. Journey's end, the mountain of Lapis Lazuli. The rays of the rising sun made it seem like a revelation. The night shift had come to an end, and the miners were making their way down the mountainside, just as they have for 6,000 years, each carrying around 60 kilos of lapis on his back, the bag for the night. The overseers chivied them along with their sticks. This is some of the lapis which has been excavated overnight. The men are small-time dealers who've brought it direct from the miners. It's been accepted from time immemorial that the miners can pilfer some of the lapis they dig out. If anyone tried to stop this, there'd be trouble. The overseers, who are calling out the miners' names for payment, work for big dealers who lease the mine's output a month at a time. The old man's questioning the amount his night's work has been valued at. "You aren't paying me enough," he says. One of the other overseers says, give him some more. The difference is tiny, matter of a few pence. The mining village at Sarisang must always have looked like this, ever since the days when Lapis was dug out for the pharaohs of Egypt and the kings of Ur and Babylon. Today, as in the past, it's solely composed of men. One story says the mine is female and would be jealous of the presence of women here. Commander Malik, the man who runs Sarisang for Najmuddin Khan, the warlord, met us in the main street. He seemed extremely welcoming and invited us to his house. He told us that a British dealer in precious stones, Guy Clutterbuck, was waiting for us. We'd made an arrangement to meet him here. Clutterbuck is one of only 4 Westerners who'd been to the mine in the past quarter century. He lives in Sweden and makes the journey to Sarisang every year or so. Malik offered us tea and a meal. When I asked him about the mine and its profits, his answers were noticeably guarded.
The money earned here is for everybody in Afghanistan. From all over the country, people come here to work, including many who are very poor. None of the money raised goes to the war or the commanders. It goes toward building roads, mosques, schools and clinics, and helping the poor. For 40 years, the Afghan king took all the money from the mine for himself. But now, Commander Najmuddin uses the money to build roads.
Commander Malik gave us guides to take us up the mountain to the Lapis mines. It was an arduous climb, with the village hundreds of feet below us. In places, the path had been swept away by landslides, which meant we had to make our way up the sheer rock face. There are 4 mines on the mountain altogether, but we were heading for the oldest one, called Mardan-i-Yek. You could see signs at the entrance of the mine how they'd extracted the lapis in the earliest times, 4000 BC. They would pack the walls with wood, which they set on fire. Then they threw water onto the rock to crack it. Primitive methods, but good enough to hollow out tunnels deep into the mountain. 30 or more years ago, when the king was on the throne, foreign experts were brought in, but the war chased them away. Now the miners use the crudest methods imaginable. They use their bare hands to guide the drills. The holes they're making are for sticks of explosive. By comparison with the eventual value of what they produce, these must be some of the worst paid workers in the entire world. For a 12-hour day, often in the most difficult and dangerous conditions, they get exactly £1.20, $2 a day. And a kilo of the best quality lapis which they produce can sell for as much as $20,000 or £12,000 once it's cut and polished in Europe or the United States. The lapis which they extract like this is often quite badly damaged. It's a self-defeating way of mining, but as things stand, there's no other way open to them.
They're in there in a very primitive way. They're packing explosives without really any knowledge of how to do it, and consequently they are raping the mine, which is a tragedy for Lapis, and also it has a very bad effect on the price. Obviously, it's come down a lot. The Afghans should benefit a lot more from this unique stone.
The miners head back in to pick up the chunks of lapis. The rape of the mine certainly doesn't benefit people like Abdul Samad. His version of things here is very different from the one we'd heard earlier.
Najmuddin Khan sells concessions for the mines to businessmen. The businessmen give him the money. He issues the orders from his base. Commander Malik keeps check on it all. The commanders who have the power make money. When the mine is blasted, the commanders take it over, take the big rocks, and after that, the rest of us get the leftovers. I have a wife and child to pay for. Commanders take all the lapis and spend the money on themselves.
As we left, Commander Malik presented us with some lapis, but he also told our translator privately to warn us never to speak about the things we'd seen here at Sarisang. We set off on the long route the Lapis dealers take to Pakistan. 3 days and 2 nights of hard travelling. The horses we hired had once been used as mounts in the savage Afghan game of Buzkashi. Now, though, they were meek and well behaved. We came across several groups of traders following the same path we did, their donkeys laden with Lapis Lazuli, 20 or more of them at a time. This dealer said he was taking 70 kilos of Lapis to the Pakistani border, 50 miles away. A tough journey, he says. But it isn't only Lapis that comes along here. Heroin, opium, emeralds and weapons are all smuggled along the same route. We came at last to an open plain high in the mountains where the different traders halt to make tea and gossip. It's neutral ground. No one steals here, so it's safe to leave the bags of Lapis unguarded. We found a group of smugglers with half a dozen falcons they'd trapped. They'll be sold to falconry enthusiasts in Saudi Arabia for £100,000 per bird. In Afghanistan, there are no rules except for self-interest.
We know it's illegal, but everyone who comes to Afghanistan can come and do what they want. These birds are banned everywhere, but here there are no rules or regulations. There used to be lions, tigers and other birds here, but they all disappeared because no one enforces any law. People here are poor and need to survive. That's why this and all the other trading happens.
On the third night, we reached the border with Pakistan, where we could hire vehicles. In the darkness, our horsemen tried to rob us of the Lapis we'd been given back at the mine, but we caught them at it. The journey by vehicle proved to be just as difficult as the journey by horse had been. The road over the Shai Salim Pass was atrocious, and as we climbed to 15,000 feet, it grew bitterly cold. But we crossed the border into Pakistan without any problems. The post was almost unmanned. Travellers aren't supposed to cross here anyway. It's part of the smuggling route. The next morning we reached Chitral, once an independent kingdom and then a principality under the British. A look back at the mountain peaks showed the route we had come. Chitral is the first check-in point inside Pakistan for Lapis. Large amounts of it are officially taxed here, though plenty comes through illegally as well. At a fort beside the river, where his ancestors once supported the British in a famous siege, I met Prince Shuja, a leading conservationist, who stressed the importance of Lapis here.
The Lapis trade, since it has started, has done wonders for Chitral. Before the Afghan war, when the Lapis was not coming into Chitral, the district council is living on government grants. It doesn't have a lot of resources. Only about 3 or 4 million rupees in that way was being generated by the district council. And suddenly the district council funds went up to almost this year more than 16 million.
So if the war in Afghanistan stops, then obviously Chitral would lose out.
Oh yes, definitely, definitely.
The dusty streets of Chitral are just a brief stopping place for the Lapis. It's further south, in the noisy city of Peshawar, the capital of Pakistan's wild northwest frontier province, that the big deals are made. Nothing here is what it seems. The Lapis traders operate behind a humble front, tyre repair workshops. But the policemen who offer protection, often at a price, aren't there to guard used tyres. The latest consignment of Lapis has just arrived from Afghanistan, wrapped in the kind of bags we saw on the road from Sari Sang. On the right, another policeman looks on, but he prefers not to be filmed. Guy Clutterbuck has met up with one of his regular contacts here, a trader who deals in large amounts of Afghan Lapis. Along the narrow side streets, the dingy shops display quantities of precious stones. The trader leads the way into what they call here his go-down. It's where he keeps his most expensive stock. In the corner, under a few dirty sheets, was the most glittering prize we'd seen. Cut and polished, these stones would be worth about $2 million, £1.25 million. But the trader's reluctant to discuss his profits.
We pay in cash, no, to different people, no, and they bring the stone to us, and then we pay cash to them. Not credit, no.
What about? I mean, you must make quite a good profit.
No, we are not good, taking good profit. If we will buy one stone for 100 rupees, we will sell it for 110 rupees. No, 10%, 15%. That is our profit.
What about the Afghans? Who makes the big money in Afghanistan?
The mine people, they are making money, no, because they have their own mines, and they blast one mine and they get the stone from